Greetings and welcome everyone to this Microsoft 365 Development Bi-Weekly Community Call. Today is September 2nd. We are already into September, and my name is David Warner with Catapult Systems and PnP team member, and we warmly welcome you all. Let's talk about our agenda for today. We're going to get the latest on a number of PnP initiatives, the PnP framework and core SDK, PnP PowerShell, Yo, Teams, Microsoft Graph Toolkit. We'll talk about some team samples and Power Platform samples. And of course, we're going to always do our together mode opportunity. Everybody enjoys seeing the community. And then we're going to get to our fantastic presenters of the day, Reza Durrani, Stefan Bizer, and Natalie with Microsoft. They're going to talk about SharePoint approval workflow status tracking with column formatting, build your first conversational chatbot for Teams, and then we're going to see some updates on the independent publishing connectors for Power Platform. Let's dive in directly to the opportunities that you all have to participate in this community. First is, of course, providing a demo or solution or technical pattern on these community calls. We welcome everyone. We are an inclusive and open source community, so we would love to see the samples you have, no matter how simple or complex. We want you to share with the community what it is that you've learned that you have found valuable. In fact, we've even opened up a new form. If you'd like to request a demo spot on the call, you can go to aka.ms/m365pnp/request/demo, and we will capture your information and get back to you and get us something scheduled there for you. And if you would like to contribute on GitHub, we provide an open source opportunity for you. It is completely available for you to contribute your samples and demos as well. And of course, we always welcome feedback. We want to hear what is working for you, what is not working for you. We want to make sure that this is the best and most inclusive open source community to provide you the resources and tools that you need. Now, page links, as Patrick calls them, here is a number of links that are available to you within our community. We've got Microsoft 365 developer videos, ka.ms/m365dev YouTube, Microsoft 365 community videos by all of the community members here that you see on these calls, as well as others, available aka.ms/m365pnp/videos. A number of open source initiatives. Those links are all available there via SharePoint, PnP, Office Dev, Microsoft Graph. They all take you to the GitHub repositories where you can not only use the resources available, but contribute back. And of course, if you want and are looking for samples, we have got samples aplenty for you. All kinds of sample galleries, team samples, SPFX samples, Power Platform samples, extensions, list formatting, and it goes on. Now, this is a lot of links to take in all at once, so there's only really one link that you need to take notice of immediately, and that is our M365 PnP landing page, aka.ms/M365 PnP will give you access to all these things in a one-stop shop. So please don't hesitate to bookmark that and check it often. The first repository that we want to talk about today is our script samples. Now, this is a newer initiative for us, but it has over 80 scenarios and 107 scripts using CLI for Microsoft 365, PnP PowerShell, or SBO management shell tooling. There are tons of contributions so far. You can contribute. In fact, we have an AMA coming up on this here in a couple of weeks. So check out aka.ms/script samples, a wide variety of opportunity and a wide spectrum of script opportunities for you to contribute to. Now, we also understand that there may be some challenges or hurdles for you as you start entertaining and utilizing the resources and tools available to you in the community. And in fact, if you'd like to contribute back, that could be even more intimidating, but we have got you taken care of. We got your back. We want to provide you hands-on guidance sessions by way of the sharing is caring opportunity that is going to provide you the ability to collaborate with others in the community and members of the PnP in a live hands-on session. Now, the spectrum of topics is wide. It goes from first-time contributor down to first-time presenter. So if you're looking to provide a sample or you're looking to demo a sample, we want to make sure you're feeling confident and well-equipped to be able to accomplish that task. They are scheduled all month long. They are free and they are not recorded, so they are completely safe space opportunities for you to take advantage of and learn more about the opportunities that you can contribute to within this community and get more involved. We also have the ever popular AMAs, and as you can see, we've got a number of them coming up, ranging from the Recognition Program, Script Samples, Power Platform, and of course the newly scheduled list formatting with Chris Kent, so everybody's going to enjoy that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Register for any and all of these at aka.ms/sharing is caring. Now, once you have begun contributing, we'd love to celebrate that, and we want to recognize you in our new formal and official PnP Recognition Program. This is a program that is powered by Credly. That's the same Credly that handles all of the certification for Microsoft exams. So when we provide you these badges within the PnP Recognition Program for your contributions, they're going to sit right alongside those. They're going to provide you ability to show them on your LinkedIn profile, to be able to share them on Twitter, to show all of the amazing efforts that you've been putting into the community. We've got tons of campaigns. We've been working on the blog authoring opportunities, SPFX samples, and we've got a lot of limited edition badges that are going to be coming soon during the holidays and stuff like that to make it a lot of fun. So we need you to opt in though. So check out aka.ms/m365pnp-recognition. Keep that link there for you, because we're going to keep looking to provide, again, those additional campaigns and look for ways to continue to celebrate all the amazing work you're doing. Now let's move into PnP.NET libraries, and we'll start with the .NET.
Sure. Thank you, David. This is Bert here. .NET libraries means two libraries. So we have a PnP framework library, which is the older, I don't call it legacy, but let's say call it the older library, and then we have the new library, PnP CoreSDK. So for PnP framework, we are at 1.6, and we're kind of getting back from vacation. At least I am, and some other folks as well, I know. So we're catching up on things. There's a couple of pending PRs that we have to merge over there, and already a couple of fixes from Erwin, Louis, Christian, Miguel, and Koen that have been merged and will be available in the next 1.7 release. Those releases, the 1.7, if the next versions of the libraries will be around, let's take October timeframe, something like that. So fairly soon. On the PnP Core SDK side, the new library, more things have happened. So we are at 1.3. We were a bit quiet during vacation, but now we're catching up on things. I know that Paolo is really working hard to build a new version of the PnP transformation framework. So the technology that translates pages, that's coming to PnP Core SDK in a new fashion. Also building an admin library. So for admin related API calls, so you can use those as well. And there is a ton of smaller improvements coming up. I think that sums up for PnP.NET. On the PowerShell side, a bit of a similar story, meaning everyone is slowly getting back from vacation, you know how it goes. But one thing to highlight here is just the usage. PowerShell usage just skyrocketing, guys. It's like more than 700,000 downloads, close to 100 million commandlets. Well, that's maybe not so close, but we're getting to 100 million commandlets soon, I hope, executed per day. So that's just massive, massive usage. Overall, what happened in 1.7 is like the new system release, like we do automatically for everything, by the way, and some minor fixes. But again, there's pending PRs, pending issues to be handled over there. So you'll see some more progress in the next weeks. And I think that sums it up, David. Thank you. And back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Bert. Next up is Yo Teams. And I believe we're going to have Paolo talk to that.
No problem. So, well, about the Yo Teams project, actually, as Bert already said, for the .NET libraries and PnP PowerShell, we have been on vacation, so there are no big news, but for sure we had a huge increment of usage of the Yo Teams toolkit, so we're really happy about that, and we plan to improve it in the upcoming month with new features and new capabilities. And if you like, give an eye to the new preview features that you can find in 3.3.0 version of the tool. And that's it on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Paolo. And it was mentioned that Yo Teams in the last month had the most scaffolded projects in its history. So that shows the amazing desire to use this within the community. And thank you, everyone, for showing your support in using this tool set. Next up is Microsoft Graph Toolkit, and we'll hand it over to Beth.
So for Microsoft Graph Toolkit, we are still working on the 2.3 release. This is going to be the first release that the majority of the features are contributed by our community, including the Teams MSL provider and file upload functionality for as part of the file list component. Our team personally is still working on aligning the changes with all the Toolkit component to Flink UI web components that's released in the last build. There has been a lot of architectural discussions, so that we wanted to keep all the existing features because there's framework differences, so that conversation continues. You can see some of the newer updates that's listed on the screen. A lot of these are also contributed by our community members. I wanted to call for help again because we have a limited number of devs on our team and we're focusing on the alignment of Toolkit to Flink UI web components. We really need your help to, if you wanted to introduce new features between V2 and V3 for bug fixes and new features. So come check out Help Wanted and Good First Issues in our repo at aka.ms/mgt, and then give us feedback on the new components that we're building. One is MGT Search. This is going to enable people to search for entities such as people, files, chat, or channels, all included in the same. And then the other one is MGT Picker. This is going to enable you to pick different entities from the single component. And we have a PR and for the spec for search, and then an issue created for MGT Picker. So let us know. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Beth. And for those that are not familiar or as familiar with MGT, just on Tuesday, we had our first Microsoft 365 platform community call where Waldeck went over the MGT. So check out the chat for a link to that video if you've not already seen it. Really awesome stuff. Now we'll move on to Microsoft Teams samples with Bob German.
Hello, everyone. You know, I have a trivia question to start off with. What happens if you take Yo Teams and the Microsoft Graph Toolkit and put them together? The answer is answered by Marcus Muller's excellent 2 new demos that he's just added to the repository. And the link is right there. He's actually showing how to use Yo Teams with MGT authentication and components, as well as with Teams SSO authentication and MGT components. So you can leverage all those really great, MGT features from inside of the Yo Teams projects. So thanks so much for that, Marcus. Also, I want to thank Dogan for, and hopefully I'm saying everybody's name right, for updates to the Node.js SSO tab example. I have to say that these samples are only as good as we can keep them current, and we really need to scale through the community. So I really, really appreciate that kind of update and ongoing maintenance on the samples. So please, your contributions are welcome, aka.ms/teams-samples. Sharing is caring. And back to you, Dave. Thanks.
Awesome, Bob. Thanks. We're going to have to get some Jeopardy music next time for you. Set up some, I'll have Community Rocks for 100, Bob.
That's right. Exactly.
Awesome. Next up is Power Platform Samples with April Dunham.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I do not have trivia for you all, but I will talk about the Power Platform samples. We don't have any new samples this week, but we have a lot of great samples out there that you should definitely check out. Everything ranging from fluent UI themes for your Power Apps Canvas apps to responsive templates that Matthew Devaney has submitted recently. So definitely encourage you. This is open source. We do have an AMA coming up as well, as David mentioned earlier, for Power Platform. So make sure that you do check that out. If you have any questions about how, submitting samples here, using any of the samples or anything like that, we welcome all of your Power Platform samples from Power Apps, templates, components, connectors, custom functions, Power Automate flows, Power BI, Power Virtual Agents. We will take it all. So looking forward to more contributions and seeing what we can share with you next month. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks, April. That is a ton of stuff. So definitely check out that AMA and sign up for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, now is time for the optional picture time. And I believe Vesa is going to take over and we're all going to say hello to the world.
Yes, indeed. Let me actually share my screen. Let's start from there and I will get everybody visible there as well. So there we go. We are now in 10. I think we'll get the full house again today. We're hitting 200 attendees on the call, which is pretty cool. So there's 50 seats to get to the picture, and then we'll do some recording and waving hands, hopefully. Daniel, behave on the back row. And Bert, you can take care of the troublemakers in the last row. Are we getting more people? Let me actually enable the video as well. Or do we have a technical challenge? There's me. Anybody else who wants to join the video? And just waving our hands. I can see on the presenters. Not that many people. Come on. Okay, so we are getting more people in. That's Patrick. Just checking. Let's wait a few more times. There's Risa, a lot of familiar faces. Paul is there as well. I think we are maxing out pretty much then today. So let's do the hand waving. We're recording already. Thanks everybody for joining today, and we'll move into the demo section in a few seconds. Thanks everybody. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And let's get back on the slides.
Awesome. Thanks, Vesa. All right. Well, we're going to move into our demos now. So we're going to give our attention to Reza Durrani from Catapult on the topic SharePoint approval workflow status tracking with column formatting. Reza, feel free to take over.
Hello. All right. I'll just go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So the topic at hand today is SharePoint approval workflow with status tracking. A little bit about me. My name's Reza Durrani. I'm a Microsoft Business Applications MVP and a Microsoft Certified Trainer. I work at Catapult Systems along with my friend David Warner. I work as a Power Platform Practice Technical Lead. That's the link to my YouTube channel, and that's my Twitter handle. So the topic for today is purely approval workflows in SharePoint, and how we can track the output and the status of those workflows. So my scenario here is expense reporting, in which I have a simple SharePoint list wherein users can add their expense details. Once the expense information is recorded by the users, I'm leveraging Power Automate to add an approval process to the incoming expense requests. These approvals are dynamic in nature. They are serial approvals, and using the power of column and view formatting, I was able to track the entire approval process from start to finish. Who the approvers are, where we are in the approval status, how long did the approvers take to respond, and so on and so forth. The key components of this solution, the first one, of course, is SharePoint. I'm leveraging a standard SharePoint list, and I've applied some column and view formatting to enhance the experience. I've also leveraged a little bit of the SharePoint form configuration features to create an experience around the SharePoint form, wherein we have sections, a header section right here, as we can see. And finally, Power Automate, that is backing up the entire approval process. So let's get straight into the demo. Here I have a SharePoint list of expense reports, and I'll first head over to the list view so we can look at the columns of this list. Standard details being tracked, the title of the expense, start date, end date, the amount, a description, a choice column that tracks the status of the approval, a multi-line text column that tracks the entire history of the approval. And then I have something known as expense type, which is the type of the expense. And this is a lookup column to a separate list, of course, which is a list of expenses. I have my types defined. And more importantly, for each of these types, I have my approvers defined. Now, this definition of my approvers here is dynamic in nature. So if the user adds an expense request related to training, in that scenario, my approvers would be James, followed by Reza, followed by Sarah. So right here, I can define the order in which my approvers need to approve this incoming request. If I had additional expense types, I can simply add them in here. And if I need to add additional approvers or maneuver the approval order around, I can simply just go to my SharePoint list, edit this, and make a change to my approvers person type column. So that's the setup related to the SharePoint list. Now on top of this, I needed an approval process. So I've leveraged Power Automate. And this is my Power Automate approval workflow. This workflow triggers or kicks off the moment the user creates an item in my expense reports list. Try and zoom in here. Once I have the context of the item right here in the trigger action, my next step is to go and grab the approvers related to the expense that the user has created. And to grab that information, I'm using a get items query against the expense types list. And here I have an OData query that goes and grabs the approver information from my expense types list based on the expense type the user has selected for the request that they've put in. Once I get those details, I add them to a variable of type array, and that's the list of my approvers. That's coming based upon the expense type selected. Once I have that, my first step is to go and update the status of the current item. And the way I do that is I just change the choice column approval status to pending because the approval process will be starting now. And in my approval history column, which is of type multi-line of text, I just go ahead here and enter simple text that says that this expense request approval process has been started by the person who created this request, and they started this at today's date and time. So I'm just maintaining a history of the entire process of approval by updating the values inside my multi-line text column. I also have an approvers column of type person. So I'm plugging in who the approvers are as the expense request comes in based upon the expense type. Next, I loop through the array of the approvers that is obtained dynamically. And for each of those approvers that I obtain, I start the approval process. Now I begin the approval process only if the status is not equal to rejected. Because my process is a serial approval, a multi-step approval. If any approver rejects it, the entire process stands rejected. If the first approver approves it, it moves to the second and the third and so on and so forth, depending upon how many approvers were defined for that specific expense type. So as long as the status is not equal to rejected, we will begin an approval process. And the approval process simply goes ahead and creates an approval task for the current approver that's running in this for loop of my array of approvers. Once the task is assigned to the approver, the flow will wait for their response. Once the approver responds, I am once again tracking the details of the approval response. And in this case, I'm tracking a lot of information about the approver's decision. Their decision, who the approver was, at what date and time did they respond, how long did they take to respond, and any comments that they plugged in while they were responding to the approval process. Once this is done, I am loading it into my array variable once again. And finally, I check to see the outcome of the approval. What's the final decision? If the decision of that approver is approved, in that case, I will go ahead and change the status of the item only if this is the last approver in the thread of approvers. And how do I track if this is the last approver? I have an index variable that I maintain inside this for loop right here that I'm incrementing each time the loop runs. So I have the counter of the approver that's currently running this action. And at the same time, I also know how many approvers I have because I can check the length of my array variable. So I check to see, is this the last approver? If yes, then the status will change to approved. If no, that means there are more approvers who need to approve this. I keep the status as pending. In case the approver rejects it, I straight away go and set the status as rejected. And then this variable that I'm maintaining in my flow, I change its status to rejected. If this stands as rejected, the next time the loop runs, because I have added this condition that checks to see the status is not equal to rejected, it will never go into the yes condition, and the flow will not move ahead and not assign any further approval tasks. So that's the concept behind this approval process. Now let's go ahead and try and create an expense item. So here in my list, Reza is logged in and Reza creates a new item. Very simple standard SharePoint list with a little bit of form formatting here. So I'll create an expense item. Let's say I need some Power Automate training, or maybe I took some Power Automate training for $600 or $500, training for flows. And this one I will relate it to training. And maybe I took this yesterday for a day. I can even attach receipts, basically attachments, to prove my expense details. And once I'm done with this, I'll click save. Now, the moment I do this, the first step here is that the information gets logged in SharePoint. Next, the status is set to new. By default, I'm setting that column to new. And because I just created the item, Power Automate now will trigger and begin the approval process, because the trigger for my flow was when a new item is created in the SharePoint list. Once the process begins, we will have the status change from new to pending. And because I want to show two cases, I'll go and create another item right here once again. So I'll go and say new, and this time I will say I need some, let's try a different expense type. I'll pick marketing. So maybe I have event promotion. Maybe we are being involved in an event. We need to promote something. So $1,000. Let's put this as test, and I'll just put the start end date and click save. So now I have created two expense requests in my list in SharePoint. Now, once the flow triggers, we will have the status move ahead from new to pending. This can take up to a minute or so until the flow triggers. Now, while the flow is triggering, let's try and look at some of the column formatting samples that I have put in place. The first key column formatting sample for me was this little timeline that you see right here. And what this does is if I select this, it gives me the details of the approval process. So for example, the customer lunch meet, this request that James put in as the creator for $100 was approved. And this was approved by Sarah and Reza. And these are the full details of that approval history. When it started, who started it, date and time, and how long did they take to respond, along with their comments. Now, all of this, if I head over to the list view, this is my column formatting sample that I have leveraged right here. So if I go to approval history, column settings, and format this column, this is the JSON code that I will just go and plug in VS Code. And the key thing here is, one, I am no JSON expert. So how did I get this sample? Well, I looked at the PnP column formatting samples, and one of the samples that's been put out by Tetsuya Kuwahara, and I'm a big fan of his work. He had put out this nice looking timeline sample. And what I did is literally I just took this and transformed it from a vertical looking timeline to a horizontal looking timeline. And when you select this, it opens this custom hover card. In there, I just show my description column, my history column. That's all I did. And the way I did that is simply when the user selects this custom hover card right here, and we can see the code in action here, all I do is just go ahead and plug in the approval history. And regarding the position of this shape, if you notice the shape moves from left to right depending upon the current status, the way I handle that is by using the justify content attribute. So if I zoom in here, we can see that in action right here. If the status is pending, I position it in the center. If it's new, I position it on the left. If it's approved or rejected, I just move that shape onto the right-hand side. And the color of the shape also is dependent upon the status. So that's why when you see here, depending upon the status, the color of this circular shape changes as well. And when the user selects this, it opens up the entire history. So now if I go back to my tiles view here I've leveraged view formatting in which I show that same column formatting experience. In here, I'm tracking my approval process. So these are the two requests I put in. For the training request, I have 3 approvers. For the marketing request, I have 2. And these are being dynamically picked from this specific list. So right now, the task is assigned to James. And you can see that with this little status indicator that I'm showcasing right here. So as a user, I know who my approvers are, and I also know who the current task is assigned to by just looking at this visual. So right now the task is assigned to James for my Power Automate training. If I sign in as James and head over to the approval email, James can see all the details of the approval along with a link to the item. And James can approve a request or reject the request. So let's say James approves this and says, okay. So James has taken his approval decision. Once James's approval decision is logged, the flow now will move ahead to the second approver because James has approved it. And while the flow moves ahead, the flow is smart enough to know that the status is still pending because Reza or James is not the last approver. There are more approvers in the thread. And if you observed it, it moved ahead live. it converted the James's approval to green because James took his decision, and now it's jumped ahead to Reza. And if I click on this approval timeline, I can see the entire process right here. Reza started the approval, James took the approval decision, James took 3 minutes to respond. That was pretty quick. And this is the comments that James put in. Now the task is assigned to Reza. So now if I sign in as Reza, Reza should get the approval task created. And in this case, let's say Reza goes ahead and says, no, I'm not going to approve this. Reza rejects this outright. Now, since Reza has rejected this, the status now changes to rejected. And when it changes to rejected, no other approval task would be assigned. That means the process will stop at this point, and we will see the status now turn red, goes to rejected, and this light will turn red, and no task will be created for Sarah. So let me try and refresh this. And there we can see that live here in action. And then for event promotion, it's basically the same experience. I have 2 more minutes or 3 more minutes, so let me just make this quick. Let me show you the formatting experience for this. The key to show the status here was 2 things. One, if I head over to my list view again, I have a column called approvers, wherein I track who my approvers are, of course. I also have something known as approver index. This tells me where we are in the approval process. So if index is 1, that means it's the task is with the first approver. If it's 2, it's the second approver, and so forth. So the index lets me know where we are in the approval process. And I already have my list of approvers. With this information, all I needed to do was just apply some very simple column formatting. And once again, all I did is I stole a sample from PnP. I believe this was from Chris Kent, wherein he shows how to put like an apply to each loop and basically a for loop to append your multi-person type column. So I just leveraged that formatting sample. And here I'll just go and copy this, paste this in Visual Studio Code. And let's look at the main crux of this. So this was the PnP sample that Chris put out. And in there, he loops through the person type column, and he just places the images of the person one next to each other. So I thought about reusing that concept. And what I did is I actually reapplied that concept. But the only thing different I did is I placed certain emojis, which basically tell me the status of the approval. So instead of putting images, I used emojis. And that emoji is the status. And to drive the status here, let me try once again and zoom in. To drive the status here, all I did was this. If my status is approved, that means every approver has definitely approved it. So for each person in that approval thread, put the green icon. If the status is pending and the current item index is less than the approver index, which is the special index column that I'm maintaining, which tells me where we are in the approval process. If the current user's index is less than that, that means they've definitely approved it. So it's green. Else it's yellow, else it's green, else it's red. That's the basic logic that I applied right here. So same concept as what Chris put out, but I just changed it with a few emojis and just played around with status. And this is what I ended up with. So you can build these experiences for your users inside SharePoint by applying column formatting, view formatting. And then if you apply on top of that, the power of approvals, leveraging Power Automate, you can create such amazing experiences. I'll just wrap it up quickly with a few learning resources so you can get started with what I demoed today. I have a full playlist on column formatting, approvals, SharePoint, of course, and Power Automate. So if you want to check that out, that's the link, bit.ly/sp formatting. I have my own GitHub repo wherein I maintain my list formatting samples. Luis was sweet enough to reach out to me and let me know that I can apply in the PnP samples as well. So I'll plan to do that as well very soon. And finally, thank you for listening, and a big thank you to Vesa for giving me the opportunity to be on this call today. I have been a fan of Vesa ever since the PnP initiative started, and I've always been on the other side of the call, and I'm extremely excited to be here today. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Reza. Excellent stuff. There are warrior horses celebrating around the globe with all that list formatting goodness. All right, we're going to move directly over to Stephen. We're just a couple minutes behind, so we're going to move over to Stephen on build your first conversational chatbot for Teams. Stephen, you want to take over?
Sure. Thanks, David. Let me just quickly share the screen. Hi, everybody, and welcome to my demo on building your first conversational chatbot for Microsoft Teams. In case you just want to reach me after the call, here's my at least Twitter handle, so you can reach me out on Twitter if you have any questions about what I'm demoing today. As you might know, there are few, let's say, options when building chatbots in the Microsoft world. You got PVA coming from the Power Platform. You got the Microsoft Bot Framework and Azure Bot Service, and of course some other options as well. What I'll do today is I'll go through a demo which I've built using Bot Framework Composer. So Bot Framework Composer is the more or less graphical user interface built on top of the Microsoft Bot Framework, which you can use to build bots not only for Teams but in general. And I've prepared a little bot which I'm going to walk you through in the next couple of minutes. So I won't build anything from scratch. I've prepared the demo already, and I'll walk you through that. So first things first, if you go ahead and create a bot with Composer, you got a lot of templates you can use. You can create an empty bot. You can create a more or less conversational bot. You can leverage the templates built by Microsoft or build your own. I've gone with the core bot template, which includes at least language understanding. So it comes with some basic triggers in there. It comes with some language understanding functionality in there. If you go ahead and create a bot, you need to at least assign your bot your language understanding key. So you got to go to the Azure portal, create a new LUIS application or a LUIS service, get the authoring key from there, and paste it into your Composer bot. And the second thing I have done already is I've created a Azure bot, which was then called in the past bot channel registration service. And I've pasted it in the Microsoft App ID and my Microsoft App password. So switching to the Azure portal, I've created an Azure bot. With that Azure bot comes a new enterprise application or app registration for you. You got to get the Microsoft App ID and the app secret, paste it into Composer. And what I've done as well, because as we're speaking about building a bot for Teams and building a bot targeted to the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, we of course need at least some basic functionality coming from Azure AD or from the graph. So what I've done for my Azure bot is I have added a new OAuth connection, which is of type service provider Azure AD. And in there, you need to at least provide client ID and client secret. And of course, you need to provide the resource URL you're gonna use within your bot use case, then, which is in my case the Microsoft Graph. And you need to define the scopes you want to tackle, which is in my case some basic ones like user read, profile, OpenID, and stuff. So that's basically the preparation you need to fulfill before you can before you can give it a go. And then going back to Composer, what I have done right now is within my root dialog, which is called Core with Language dialog, I have added some basic triggers. Some have been coming from the default template like reading, cancel, help, and stuff like that. And what I have done is I have added another trigger called Get Reports dialog, because what I want to do is whenever a user interacts with the chatbot in Microsoft Teams, the user should be able to get basic information about his direct reports. So what I've done here is I've added a trigger, and as you can see on the right-hand side here, this trigger has some trigger phrases. So language understanding kicks in, and whenever a user asks the bot something about his direct reports, like show me the direct reports or stuff like that, this trigger will be triggered, and then a new dialog will begin. And this dialog is called Get Reports dialog. And in here, you'll see the first connection to my Azure AD app with the OAuth login, because somehow the chatbot needs to know who the user is and basically get the credentials of that user and get the user context. So I'm using an action called OAuth login, and in there I'll just need to provide my connection name. Remember, this is the connection name I have added to my Azure bot with this OAuth service connection, which is called AADSPI. And then you can give it a title and stuff like that. And the most important piece of information here is the token property. So where should the bot store the token to, which is then received upon when the user logs in, which is in our case turn.token. So it's valid for the current turn, and the property is called token. And with that token, I can then go ahead and go to the Microsoft Graph. And as you can see in here, I have I've added actions for the Microsoft Graph, so those can be used and installed right into your Composer-based bot using the package management tool. And in there, I have just installed two basic packages, which don't show up right now. But if you search for example for Graph, you can basically just install the Microsoft Graph package. And there's another one for Teams, which then give you more options in terms of actions you can use, like get the signed in user's profile. And in there, we just need to provide again the token. Turn.token was the property we have assigned within our OAuth login action, and the actual value of the token is stored into the token property. And then with that, as we have the current signed in user's profile, we can then, of course, store that information in another property called turn.user. And then we can use that property in another action, get direct reports of a user. And this action basically just asks for a user ID. And as we have the user ID with the signed in user's profile, we can then go ahead and say, okay, the user ID is turn.user.id. And then we store that again in another property called turn reports. And with that turn reports, we can then go ahead and get the profile for each report. For the sake of simplicity, I have just added one action. Usually you would do a for each loop and loop through all direct reports you'll get back, and then get for each report, because you just get the ID of that report or of that user, which is a report of that signed in user. And then you go ahead and get the full profile. So you get display name, first name, last name, email address, user principal name, and stuff like that. I've just done it for one user, turn.reports, and the first occurrence .id. And then what we'll do is we'll just really simple send out the user's display name and the user's email address. And that's basically it. So if I'm going to run that bot right now, just right from Composer, click start, and we'll give it a minute or so to start. I've already prepared a new Microsoft Teams app within the App Studio. I have pasted in the Microsoft App ID of the Azure bot I've shown earlier. And then what I can do from here is just go ahead and install and edit, and I've already installed it. So the conversation won't be blank, but we'll see if we're gonna go back. The bot is already running, so I can go ahead now and say, show me my direct reports. And what the bot will actually do now is, if we are lucky, we should get the login prompt, because I've restarted the bot right now. But you'll see the user account is already logged in. So it reaches out to the graph, gets the current user's profile, gets the reports of that user, and then gets the profile of the reports. And then it will basically respond back with these details. What I have done as well, because one-on-one chat is just one aspect of Microsoft Teams, but you want to include your bot anywhere in Teams, you can also go ahead and include your bot in a channel. And there's a quite cool feature within Composer, which is a trigger called onChannelCreated. So whenever there's a channel created in a specific team where the bot is already a member of, the bot can actually react to that. So in my case, what I'm going to do is I'll get the team members whenever a new channel is created, and then I can do something with it. And I've, just for the sake of simplicity, sent out a message to a Teams channel. So if I'm going to go back to Teams and open up a team where the bot is already a member of, and select Add Channel, give it a name, click on Add, and what will now happen is that the bot will actually use that trigger on channel created and say, okay, awesome that a new channel has been created called PnP demo, and then you can react on that and stuff like that. And as you might imagine, that's not the only part where you can include your bot to, because you can also add your bot to meetings, and within Composer, you can also handle those kinds of actions and triggers. So you don't need to more or less use code to build your first conversational bot for Teams. You can do it without any development efforts, just using Composer. Back to you, David. Thanks.
Awesome stuff, Steven. Thank you. That is really, really cool how you can set up these various scenarios for the bots and within the teams and the triggers. Really cool stuff. Thank you for sharing. Next up is Natalie from Microsoft. She's going to share with us some updates on the independent publishing connectors for Power Platform. So I know there's a lot of excitement about this. Natalie, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today. Great. So let's go through updates. There are a lot, as you can see on the screen. So again, just to recap, independent publisher connectors are connectors that are submitted by anyone, so built by anyone, submitted by anyone, and that run through our certification pipeline, right? So you do get that approval that your connector works and that it is of a certain quality and that it is directly available within the product. So if you ever want to submit a connector, a custom connector that you've built in the past, or you ever want to build a new one and submit it, you can just go straight to that GitHub repository and add it in there after reading through the README and the certification process. So in terms of how many connectors we have in production in the Power Platform today, we have 15 in total and 8 new this month. So I put little party and celebration symbols and icons next to all of those. So we have Yelp, Spotify, Toggleplan, Discord, What 3 Words, Etsy, Hashify, and Secure Code Warrior. So it's pretty incredible to see all these people who have been involved. Ahmad, Daniel, who's on the call today, Troy, who's also on the call today, and Matt have been adding the ones that came out this month. In terms of the leaderboard for the most number of active connections for these connectors, we have Airtable as number 1, HubSpot CRM as number 2, and Jira Search by Paul Comcy as number 3. So we're really excited to see that as well. And we have 15 connectors still in the pipeline that are going through certification. 3 of those, as you can see, are actually fun connectors. So we have Chuck Norris, Dad Jokes, and Place Dog. And Troy will be giving a quick demo today right after I finish chatting with you all with Place Dog, because who doesn't love dogs? And just in general, other updates. So Daniel, as well as a couple of the other project coordinators, have been managing the discussions, the new discussion section within our GitHub repository. Even if you're not looking to submit a connector or build a connector and you have connector ideas, that is the place to go. Daniel kicked off the thread very recently. So, just go in there, put in the connector you have an idea for or functionality for. So this is the place definitely to go that. And of course, special shout out to our project coordinators as always, Ahmad, April, Daniel, Fausto, Paul, Rebecca, and Troy, for all their brain power and for all the great things that are happening in this community. So that's all on my end. So Troy, I'll kick it off to you to give us a fun demo with the PlaceDog connector.
Yeah, so PlaceDog is a very simple API, but it's a great API. It's not, unfortunately, it's not bunnies or horses, but it does allow you to get dogs from a wide open API. So for this demo, I've created a Canvas Power App, and this is pulling up 12 dog pictures, and it allows you to easily refresh. As you can see, This refresh button is connected to a Power Automate that is, for right now, since the PlaceDog connector is not certified, I'm using my own version of it to get a dog, store the file in SharePoint, and then respond to the Power App with the URL for that SharePoint location. As you can see, after just a couple seconds, it's going to refresh all of these dogs, hopefully. Yep, oh, missed one. But yeah, so here is a great example of a independent publisher connector that is in the fun category that hopefully will be released very soon. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Troy. And Troy, is this your first time on the call today?
It is, yes.
Feel free to introduce yourself as well.
Yep, I'm Troy Taylor. I'm a consultant for Hitachi Solution. It's great to be here.
Yeah, Troy was also one of our project coordinators, and he's been submitting so many connectors. So thanks again, Troy.
Awesome. Well, that is exciting. Fantastic demos today. Let me share back out the screen, and we will wrap this up with some links to next week's calls. Excellent demos today again by Reza, Stefan, and Natalie. A lot of exciting opportunity. Thank you for everyone who's been contributing to the community. Keep it up. We've got a lot of initiatives in the pipeline and a lot of opportunities to help you continue to contribute. So keep that up. The recording will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 Community YouTube channel, aka.ms/m365pnp/videos. You can always subscribe to that to be alerted as well. Follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev or at M365PNP. The next general development call will be September 16th, same bat time, same bat channel, 7 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And the next SharePoint Framework call will be a week from today, September 9th at 7 a.m. as well. You can get links to all these community calls at aka.ms/M365PNP, as well as a calendar invite for the new Tuesday recurrent call. So I invite you to join that. It's going to become very amazing with a lot of Microsoft presenters. Of course, you can always get to all of developer community calls here. That platform weekly call URL is right there, aka.ms/M365 call, along with a number of the other development calls and community calls available to you, all available again at aka.ms/M365PNP. Thank you again to all our presenters and all of you for attending today. We'll see you next week. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, everybody. Awesome work on the demos as well. And thanks, David, for being a host today. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Bessa.
Thank you.